Dan, hit me.
Sure. After getting into computers through your videos, I'm graduating this year and starting my dream job in CPU design.
Whoa, that's super cool.
Do you have any optimistic messages going into 2024 for my doomer generation?
I don't.
There's no hope.
It's one of those things where I feel like I'm in a really awkward position where I am a participant in, the whole millennial, being crapped on thing that happened. Like I did join the workforce at a time that was not great.
The worst, basically.
Sorry?
The worst?
Yeah, the worst.
A little bit better than me.
Pretty much.
Still terrible.
Like I joined the workforce right as the 2008 financial crisis was happening, and you joined right as it had happened.
Yeah.
Both of which were really
both terrible times.
I watched as property values went up faster than I could earn money to put a down payment on something. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to find a teammate really early in my life that put us both. I can't stress enough. Finding the right person to partner with for your life is the most important decision you will ever make, bar none, because it has a waterfall effect on absolutely everyone else. I was both lucky, and I'll give myself a little bit of credit for being a good job interviewer, I guess. But, Yvonne and I found each other and put ourselves way ahead of our peers just by teaming up very early on. Which is what allowed us to get into the housing market. It's what allowed us to fund Linus Media Group. At a pretty good
time.
Well, it didn't feel like a good time.
Totally.
The value of that house had gone up double in like 4 or 5 years or something.
Absolutely.
Like it was...
But...
Looking back at it now, it's great.
It's like hilariously low.
Yeah. But psychologically at the time,
totally.
Watching the trend line, it was terrifying because it seemed like it could burst at any second. So I understand, and I not just sympathize with, I have felt a lot of what people feel. But as someone who got out, and now run a successful business, or now hire someone to run a successful business, I feel like I'm in this position where I can't really talk about it anymore. I don't really know what to say because I don't have solutions. I am doing fine, but I get it. So it's like, yeah, it's crap.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably would have told you were nuts when you got that place.
Yeah.
But then, again, looking back at it now, it's like...
It's a bargain.
Yeah.
But
it's like less than an apartment.
Yeah, like over $500,000 on just like the place to live. Like, are you kidding me? Like our I forget what our mortgage payments were, but they were a lot. Like if we weren't doubling up our incomes, there was no way.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe her income, not mine though.
But yeah, it's I don't know. And it's crazy to think that it was so crazy back then. And how bad it was back then is like a joke compared to how bad it is now.
Yeah, and we got lucky in a lot of ways, man. Like when we bought the units that we occupy here, the one, not the one I'm sitting in, but the one that I would be sitting in if I was on the other side of that wall, they cost us $330,000 each Canadian. Let me just see if I can... Rymar for sale, Surrey commercial. Let's see if there's any for sale here right now. No. Well,
so yeah, Elijah's saying like out in what would that be? Abbotsford? Out in like Abbotsford area, where was it? Oh no, I lost it. Lots of people are talking.
Yeah, I can't find any right now, but they've basically like quintupled or something like that. I don't know what
780 square foot apartment. Not close to here. Like decently far out. $400,000.
Anyway, my point with these is that we got really lucky with the ones that we got in the first place, but then experienced a lot of the same frustration as we wanted to expand, and found that the prices were going up so fast that as we needed more space, it was becoming unaffordable as fast as as we could make more money. Fortunately, we have run a very successful business and things have gone well and we've managed to, find the space that we need. But
you can't be just like a solid business anymore even.
No, it's not enough.
Very successful.
Or take outside money, which we're lucky enough to never have to do.
Yeah.
Like it's brutal.
Yeah, South Surrey, a detached house starts at $1.5 million.
Canadian. So, 1.15, 1.2 real dollars, but still
Yeah, we say, okay, so here's another one of the problems too, though, is in saying real dollars, I think that somewhat diminishes the fact that people here make less.
Yeah.
So like that's something I don't think people equate either.
Because people here have access to socialized services that other people have to pay for. Like when you actually break down everything,
it sort of depends.
It's not as black and white. And regionally, it's very, very different.
Yeah. And also in certain career paths, it's very common for those jobs to cover that for you.
Depending.
It's all...
It is never... If you think it's as black and white as socialized healthcare bad or, this job good or whatever benefits package...
There are downsides and upsides to...
It is always shades of gray. If you think you know for sure, you're wrong. It's that simple. I'm sorry. And I know that for sure, which means I'm wrong.
Yeah. Only Sith deals in absolutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Elijah's saying minimum wage still $15. Yeah, that's also just like, what? What are you supposed to do with that? You're a Sith now? So what's going on? He's Obi-Wan Kenobi. You can kind of pull it off with the beard. Clone Wars era Obi-Wan. It's not bad. It's actually pretty good.
Anyway. Sorry, I have no good news. And it looks like it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
It's only getting worse. Like with interest rates being like they are, I thought like housing prices would at least go down.
Yep. Not happening.
Like what the crap?
As far as I can tell, up still.
So you're just going to have these like gigantic corporate overlords that own every place to live, and then you'll just basically be at their mercy.
There's record levels of Canadians leaving the country because they can't afford to live here.
Yeah.
Which is like, and then that,
like,
that microcosms down to, there's also tons of people leaving the province we're in for other provinces inside of Canada. So this is like a multi-step process.
Alberta has stopped running ads to encourage Canadians to move there because they're like,
this is a lot of people.
Yeah. Please don't eat me.
Before he would have even heard you say that, Elijah was like, can we start a smaller LTT in Alberta? Because everyone in Canada is like, oh boy, gotta go there. It's the only place I can afford to live.
Yeah, well, no,
and that's going to change.
Oh man, well, the Maritimes was good until COVID, and then apparently a bunch of people like moved out of the city and started just work from home there, and like
prices up,
drove prices up like crazy.
Yeah.
We just, So let's start our own city. Elijah, we've talked about it. Just stop.
Colt. You do great. You could do it.
You do supreme.
Taryn can run the business. You can run the cult.
I'd make way more money than him. Cults seem to be very profitable.
We don't need money.
Yeah.
From what
we have Linus.
Yeah. Company store, do the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine all of the money that the company makes never actually leaving.
Segan says, we doing Linus Town again?
Yeah. Yeah, I live in Prince George, make decent money, but will never own due to rent and housing prices. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's true for most
basically
people.
An entire generation of people.
Yeah.
Which
I don't know how the heck you could do it. Like, unless you have parent money or something.
This is going to get me canceled by someone, but speaking of parent money, even being in a position where my kids can afford to stay in the Lower Mainland because I can just facilitate that.
Yeah.
Is that the life I want for them?
Yeah.
All their peers are going to leave.
Yeah.
None of their high school friendships will remain.
Or they'll just be peers with people who are also kids of people who can do that.
And
which is also highly questionable.
yeah. Like, as a parent of rich kids, I still don't want my kids hanging out with other rich kids.
Yeah.
I want my kids spending the vast majority of their time with down-to-earth people who don't take things for granted and stuff. We've actually been talking about doing an experiment. Not an experiment, because it's not really an experiment when you just do it. But Yvonne and I have been talking about moving out of our house for a year. Furnishing and accessorizing a place based on 2 sort of median-ish incomes and living like that for a year. Because I feel like...
Are you doing vehicles too?
Well, it'd have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I feel like you can talk about it all day, but I don't think that my kids can possibly fully understand that most people don't have a sports car and a theater and all this stuff that for them is just life. For me is sweat, blood, and tears.
Yeah.
And for them is just, poof, it appears. Poof, it appears. I mean, and I'm guilty of it sometimes. For Christmas,
you should come into my building. We can have pipe birthdays together. It would be great.
For Christmas, Santa got the family a Bamboo Labs 3D printer, which is as much for me as it is for them, which is how they end up with a lot of the stuff they have. But most people don't have a $1,200 3D printing setup. I don't know, man. I feel like there's a lot that they could learn, and I don't think a month is enough.
Yeah.
I think I paid so much for that pool that I am loath to give up a summer with the pool. But I think if we did an entire school year, like, there's already a lot of things that we do pretty well. Like, my kids don't go to the cafeteria at school.
I feel like
they always take a lunch.
I feel like it doesn't hit without the summer.
Without the summer, you think so?
Because the summer is going to be the most concentrated point in time where they hang out at home and do home things.
Well, remember,
At least in my experience when I was growing up.
There's lifestyle changes we're going to have to make regardless of home. Like, they are not going to be able to be in as many programs as they are. Like, they do, you know, martial arts and dance and choir and band and like all this stuff. Some of it's, you know, run through the school or whatever, but some of it costs money, and they're going to have to make choices.
House swap, give him my apartment. I don't think he wants me living in his house for a year. Funny idea though. Yeah, because like I'm thinking back when I grew up, we did a lot of things, but one that was kind of, I'm sure if my brother and I like really desperately wanted to, my parents would have tried to find a way because they were like that. But ice hockey was kind of not really in the cards because it was so expensive. Ice hockey, especially at a competitive level, was extremely expensive because a lot of those teams were like flying around and stuff to play games.
Yeah.
And the gear is wicked expensive and you're growing out of it all the time. So you'd have to buy new gear all the time. But something like ball hockey, for example, like we were going to do ball hockey pretty much no matter what. You just needed sticks, and we never had the cool sticks. We never had the nice sticks.
Yeah.
But like we could do it. We could play football. We played football all the time. My parents had me in a lot of programs, is what I'm kind of trying to argue to a certain degree.
I don't know, man. Don't sacrifice your children's development. This is a different kind of development.
He's trying to get them more.
Like,
I don't think that's...
Yeah,
you're taking this the wrong way.
I don't know, man. We it's something we've talked about. I mean, I do think there's ways that you can keep kids more grounded regardless. We have a lot of rules. they lead pretty structured lives and stuff. Like they don't just get to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And so even though it's a funny thing, even though we have a lot of different stuff that they're allowed to do, the really good stuff, they have to pay for it in doing, practice this or chore that or whatever else. Like I probably played more video games than my kids do at my son's age. Because he's just like, yeah, it's there, but he's not allowed. So he's like a really good kid. It's kind of shocking. I don't get it. But yeah, I don't know.
All in all, terrible idea. Why? I don't really get that. I don't think taking away the extracurriculars is a good idea. Yeah, I hazard that one a little bit too, but I don't understand why any of the rest of it would be a bad idea.
Elijah, seems like a funny rich issue. This is a joke. We are spoiled, so I will buy another house to teach them how to be humble.
I did think that was pretty funny.
Obviously wouldn't buy it.
Yeah,
just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Like, obviously.
You'd set up a lease holding company, which would own the house in trust so that you can defer your taxes. Sorry.
I wouldn't. Yeah, see, this is another one. JPH290 says, I know this is not exactly perfect, but you can have the kids see what poor is really like in another country. That to me actually had exactly the same problem as that other thing is like, what, we're going to learn what it's like to be poor by being rich enough to jet set around the world and witness poor people in their natural habitat. Like, that seems so much worse. But I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you this. Yvonne did like an outreach program thing when she was a kid, and did like they built something while they were there in a community.
Yeah.
And for her, that was extremely impactful. But then Yvonne, like me, also grew up in a house that had to budget every month. So was it that, or was she just already grounded, and that was the final hit on the nail, and then it was, cemented as part of her personality or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. I've read some really interesting...
No, guys, stop. Okay, we got to stop. This is important. We got to stop. There's a comment. So in a housing crisis, you're going to collect yet another house in your housing quiver. No.
No?
No. Stop. Stop.
I'd make sure someone's living in ours. And no, I wouldn't be buying it.
He's not buying it. He literally said he's not buying it.
Okay.
Stop.
Oh, man. I love this. I like hamburgers. You hate hot dogs then? No, I didn't. If I didn't say something, then I didn't say it. Can we agree on that? Maybe. Sorry, what was I saying before? Right, yeah. Something that I've read about a fair bit is how the number of generations
that wealth lasts?
That wealth lasts, and it's like 3.
Crazy.
And then it's gone, every single time, because it's there's all kinds of problems with it, but
not technically every single time.
It
is very common.
But it is extremely common.
There are particular families that have found a way to make it go for like literal ever.
But that's part of that might just be the incredible wealth of those families, because you can squander a small fortune very easily, but with a big enough fortune, you can squander really hard, and it just is a perpetual motion machine. Yeah, I only learned recently about why people hate billionaire philanthropy so much. Not the image cleansing aspects of it, but the fact that I think it's in the US, they only have to put, I think, 5% of the money into what they actually say they're doing. So if their returns on the money they put in are greater than 5%, they actually make money overall, and it's tax free. So you just get, it's a whole thing. I just learned about this recently. I don't actually know much about tax havens and loopholes and all that kind of stuff. I pay my taxes.
Oh boy.
But anyway, the whole thing about wealth not lasting multiple generations is because the attitude and mindset that makes you start a business and take risks and build it is not passed down by living in opulence as a child. And so the kids might have witnessed a little bit of it, but the grandkids are completely detached from any of the hustle that ultimately led to that success, and they just blow it or something. So Yeah. Why do you hate housing, Linus? I know, right? Yeah, Ballmer is about to make $1 billion a year in dividends. He could squander $1 billion a year and still be richer. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think that's the only one. I think some families have very strongly baked in preserve the wealth stuff.
Sure, and there's
but I think that's very abnormal.
There's communities and cultures that also have very different attitudes about money than others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tough, man. Anyway, the point is just, I want my kids to be good people. I want them to be
Your kids are pretty cool.
real people. I want them to stay that way.
I agree. I just
like it's I think that there's a lot of time.
I didn't say that to dissuade you from any further effort.
Yeah, there's a lot of developmental years left for things to go really, really wrong.
Oh yeah.
And so
you're entering some of the worst ones.
This is a super first world problem, and I 100% understand that. But I will do anything to keep my kids from being douchebags.
Yeah. That's like the worst. As two people that grew up not wealthy at all.
Yeah.
More on the poorer side. It's obnoxious.
I didn't like the rich kids.
Me too.
Like at all.
Me too.
No offense.
Yeah. But me too.
Like they just kind of sucked. No offense. Yeah. There are exceptions.
Absolutely.
Like I know Yvonne talked about one of the people she worked with at one of the pharmacies she worked at. I'm not going to identify anyone, but they grew up like jet set lifestyle and didn't want any money from mom and dad, not because they had a bad relationship. Everything was great, but didn't want anything, wanted to hustle, like 100% grind set and just super down to earth. And I'm like, yeah, but like you can't point at an exception like that and go, okay, well then everything will be fine, right? Like even if the odds were 33%, then 2 out of our 3 kids are going to be assholes. So like we gotta figure this out, man.
I've definitely met some exceptions too, but a lot of the times it's just like excessive out of touchness. So like even if there's no intention there.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you need a replacement part for that game. Why don't you just 3D print a new one?
Yeah, exactly. I've told you this story a billion times, but there was a person, when I was in a certain class at a certain school, there was a person who they were holding their laptop like this.
Yeah.
And they dropped it and it smacked into the ground and they just laughed. And my brain just shattered because I couldn't understand it all.
Like, you'd protect that thing with your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I dropped it, which like, okay, sure, I used to render LTT videos holding my laptop open so that it would cool better walking between classes. Like it was sketchy, but if I ever dropped it, I would be like broken. Not laughing about it. Like there's some like context aware things where your automatic reaction in certain scenarios, if you've never had any exposure to like life being difficult, is going to be not really okay to the people potentially around you.
My kids don't value money.
Yeah.
At all.
That's not good.
It means basically, like I remember...
Can get jobs?
I mean, yeah, of course.
And then what happens... So, okay.
But they haven't needed one.
Totally.
Like what would a kid get a job for? Well, what did you spend your money on? I mean, I bought just like dumb stuff. I bought candy. I like saved and I would buy
really early on. I
sort
bought
of
candy.
Big ticket things. Like I bought a GPU upgrade for our family computer. The biggest purchase. I don't think I've ever talked about this. The biggest purchase I think I made with like allowance money, like as a kid, was I paid for the cable internet drop from the street.
I remember you told me about this.
Oh, I have told you about this. Okay. My parents agreed they would pay the monthly bill if I paid the installation. And it was hundreds of dollars. I didn't have money, but I had all my $5 a week allowances and birthday money and all that stuff. And I was like, I want always on internet. Let's go. But like my kids have always on internet. They have a Switch. They have a gaming PC. What on earth would they buy?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like I have all the cool toys because I just like
most of the games.
I make videos about setting up toys, and I like.
I'm assuming they have
cool toys. This is all the stuff that I wanted when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
So then they just like already have it.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Most of mine was saving up for computers or computer parts or games, or when I was very young, it was candy.
Elijah, my son does value money to a degree. Not like I did when I was his age, though. Like I wanted it, you know. Whereas I think to him, it's kind of like, eh.
My brother and I wanted money so bad. We didn't really have a traditional allowance, but sometimes my mom would set up certain chores that we could do for money that were kind of like extra. And I remember for the SNES, my brother and I were on like, you mentioned this term earlier. We were on a grind set for that SNES. I think my mom was just like making up chores at a certain point. Like going and like digging up rocks in the backyard and like sorting them so that it was less rocky ground, like stuff like that. But eventually we got enough money to buy a SNES, but my mom also hooked it up there because this was I don't think Craigslist was like a thing. I don't know how she found it, but she found like some dude we bought a SNES off in a parking lot. And I remember like sitting in the car with my brother while my mom goes out and does this deal for a SNES in a parking lot, recognizing at that age, like, this is kind of sketch. But she got it to us because it was way cheaper than
Luke stolen goods Lafreniere right here, baby.
Yeah, I don't know. But it was when the N64 was already out. So it was a last gen console. But I think that was honestly, I don't know if it was because we weren't as wealthy or if that was because that was less of a big deal back then. I don't know. Because I still thought SNES was like super cool when N64 was around. I thought it was just a different style of games. Like N64 was more attempting to do 3D stuff and SNES was more like perfecting 2D stuff. I don't
think either of us had as much access to advertising at the time though.
That might be it.
Yeah, like I didn't see a lot of ads because we didn't have cable. So
yeah, fair. Yeah,
I was kind of the same way. Like, yeah.
I was like, oh, he just has this toy.
Yeah, like that friend has that one and that friend has that other one.
And I didn't really see them as like better necessarily. I got really stoked when I figured out one of my friends had an original NES because I was like, whoa, cool. I haven't played any of these games before. Like I didn't really see it as like this one is newer, therefore better. Yeah.
Man, this has definitely created some debate in the chat. I don't remember the last time I saw chat this active. People are everywhere from like, this is a great conversation to, this is the most entitled horse that I've ever seen in my life or whatever. Just let them be kids. They can learn that later. They can't learn that later though. Like that's the thing. It's so formative.
Later kind of is now.
Yeah. Anyway, was that one merch message?
Yes.
Good gravy.